Hola. If you're tuning in, this is Abelardo de la Peña Jr., Director of Marketing and Communications for La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Welcome so much to En Casa con la Plaza. Bienvenidos a todos a esta sesión de En Casa con la Plaza. Ahorita estoy arreglando unas cositas aquí. Como siempre, la técnica, the technology always seems to get in the way, but we're going to make it happen for you because it's a very special night. This is our 20th session of En Casa con la Plaza, a program which we started in response to the fact that we had to close the museum. Esta es número 20 de las sesiones de En Casa con la Plaza, que comenzamos porque de la situación que hemos tenido primero con el pandémico y ahora con la situación que está pasando ahorita. This is the first, so this is number 20, but it's the very first one with musicians that will be presenting in different locations. We've had one before with 2 musicians performing at one location, but this is something different, but can only be accomplished with the miracle of Zoom, and it has been a miracle. Es la primera con 3 músicos en diferentes locales, 5 personas en total. Y también es la primer programa que ya era parte de nuestra programación en la Plaza de Cultura y Artes. The first program that we had already scheduled to coincide with our exhibition, AfroLAtinindad, Mi Casa, My City, which had opened just a short 3 weeks before, which explores the history and contemporary experiences of Afro-Latinidad in Los Angeles through art, photographs, and personal objects. La exhibición se llama Afro-Latinidad, Mi Casa, My City, y lo abrimos apenas por 3 semanas estaba abierto para la comunidad, pero tuvimos que cerrar el museo porque del pandémico. Y ahorita, pues yo siento que es más importante que nunca en presentar este tipo de programación, la exhibición y lo que vamos a experienciar hoy día. What we're going to experience today is going to be something phenomenal, which is going to bring home, I think, all that we're feeling right now, all the emotion. And with that, welcome. I'm going to present our host for tonight, Betto Arcos, well known as a radio journalist, a DJ, educator, concert producer, a buen amigo de la Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Y con eso, por favor, Betto Arcos. Off mute, please. You're in mute. No se oye. See, like I said. Beto, thank you.
I'm very, very thrilled to be here with you tonight. Good evening. Muy buenas noches tengan todos y todas ustedes en sus casas, donde estén. Es un honor, un privilegio para mí estar acompañado esta noche de 3 grandes músicos cuyo trabajo conozco desde hace ya varios años y desde luego para compartir su arte, su trabajo, su memoria, la memoria de la presencia africana en nuestro continente. It's a pleasure to be with you with 3 musicians whose work I followed for a number of years. In some ways, in some cases, I've even collaborated and invited them to be part of events or done stories about them for the radio. And we're going to be sharing with you their work, their art, their presence, and the memory of Africa in the Americas. So welcome to En Casa con la Plaza. Tonight, the focus of our program is the African influence in Latin American music. And I want to first tell you a few words about all that this means, the splendid multiplicity of Latin American music is the result of more than 500 years of history and culture. Today, more than 20 Latin American countries are part of a rich, complex society that's been created as a result of a clash, an encounter, a confluence, a meeting of contrasting musical traditions and cultures of varied origins: indigenous, European, Spanish, Arab, and African. The people who came or were brought by force to the so-called New World helped to form a great cultural and linguistic crisol, a sort of melting pot, if you will. Upon their arrival, all of these immigrants adopted indigenous elements, which are today evident in the music, in the languages, in the cultures of the entire continent. But they also reimagined and created a new way of life through their memory, because in many cases, their cultures, their traditions, their instruments, their livelihoods were taken away by force. Let's be clear, the presence of African music in our continent is a direct result of slavery. No one can deny that. For more than 300 years, millions of people were forced to leave their homes and shipped to work as slaves in the colonies of Spain and Portugal, France and England. Their present-day culture in the form of rituals, food, dance, and music is a vibrant, living, palpable legacy of this ugly history. Just think for a moment about the Latin American rhythms, songs, and dances that have been created thanks to African music and culture. I'll just give you a few. I could spend a long time telling you about them. Cumbia, bullerengue, porro, bambuco, champeta, vallenato, currulao, son jarocho, son huasteco, son calentano, danzón, bolero, landó, cueca, samba with a Z, chamamé, tango, candombe, samba, forró, merengue, bachata, bomba, plena, son cubano, cha-cha-cha, rumba, mambo, salsa, and yes, even reggaeton. And I could go on and on for a while. So tonight we're going to be exploring 3 regions of Latin America where the African influence was crucial in the development of a musical culture: Peru, Colombia, and Mexico. And I'd like to introduce our 3 guests who come from, as it happens, 3 major port cities where the African presence was felt long before any other city in that region: Lima, Peru, Cartagena, Colombia, and Veracruz, Mexico. Angelo Salazar, guitarist, moved to California from Lima, Peru at the age of 12 and already showed a passion for music. He started to play guitar at age 16, taking master classes with un amigo mío, John Schneider, Victor Vento, Frank Perez of Peru Negro, one of the great ensembles of Peruvian music, of Afro-Peruvian music and dance, Tito Manrique, none other than Carlos Aire, one of the towers of guitar music from Peru, Julián Jiménez, Manito de Oro. And for the last 18 years, Angelo has been part of the large Peruvian community across the Southland. He's been performing in festivals, in private parties, and restaurants, and giving guitar lessons. At 23, Angelo became the guitarist for the Afro-Peruvian band Cambalache Negro that laid the foundation to a life of commitment of research and learning of Afro-Peruvian culture. Today, Angelo is the leader of his own band, Chacombo, Afro-Peruvian Music and Dance. Eduardo Martínez, who is there in the red shirt with the drums, he was born in the Caribbean coast of Colombia, in Cartagena, where he learned his tradition from the great singer and composer, Estefanía Caicedo. He went on to accompany none other, we're talking about major figures, Petrona Martínez, Totola Momposina. In fact, Eduardo recorded one of the most important albums of Toto's career, which is called La Candela Viva, recorded at none other than the Real World Studios in England with a label that was put out by Peter Gabriel back in the late 80s and early 90s. I remember this when it came out on vinyl, because that's how it used to be back in the day. But he's also played alongside one of his teachers, the great Paulino Salgado Valdés, also known as Batata, with the Ballet Nacional de Colombia. And Eduardo has also performed around the world and has been ambassador of his folklore and tradition as percussionist, gaitero, and lecturer. And I have to say, we're very lucky to have Eduardo with us in Southern California. And César Castro, amigo mío desde hace ya varios años. César Castro is from Veracruz, another port city. He's the founder of the East LA Chicano Son Jarocho band Cambalache. He's a master sonero. He's a lead singer, musician, and he's a luthier of Son Jarocho instruments. He learned the music from the renowned harpist Andrés Alfonso and from the workshops organized by Grupo Mono Blanco, one of the most important ensembles of Son Jarocho in Mexico. He went on to become part of Mono Blanco. He recorded and toured internationally with Mono Blanco and participated in many of their legendary fandangos, which is the traditional gathering and celebration of music and dance. With that, I would like to start first with Angelo and Afro-Peruvian music. Angelo, first, before I ask you anything, I would like you to show us an example of Afro-Peruvian rhythms on the guitar.
Sure. Okay, so good evening, everyone. This is Zapateo por Mayor.
Beautiful. Angelo, there are, in doing my research over the years, I've found out that there are dozens and dozens of Afro-Peruvian rhythms, which are really the result of all these things that I mentioned, but they come together as well in Peru in a specific region, as you mentioned. It's along the coast, the coastal
Yes.
cities of Peru. Tell us a bit about some of those styles, and if you could also show us some examples of the various musical styles and how the guitar plays such an important part in this fantastic music of the Afro-Peruvian community.
Well, the styles of the most popular style that we know, it's the festejo. So I'll start with that. The festejo, it's a rhythm that it's a 12/8 metric rhythm, and it's very, as the name of it, festejo, it means festivity. So it's used a lot to engage the community in a celebration, manifesting some type of birthday or any type of event happening. So I'll show you this festejo. This is how it goes. It's a little bit faster, and it's, feel free, everybody, to clap your hands and dance, move a little bit. Esto dice así, ¿eh?
How can we tell that there is an African influence in this music? The syncopation?
Right, the syncopation. So it's the triplet figure. It's present a lot. So when you count this music, you feel a pulse that goes like this. But this pulse is subdivided into three parts, which is the triplet. Ta 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 ta. In this figure, it's very African. This figure here, it allows for a lot of syncopation to happen. Da, 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 da. So, I mean, first of all, the guitar plays a secondary role within this music. I mean, this music started with the percussion, in fact, and so the guitar was added on later to it. But you can feel some similarities with other Afro influence that we're probably going to hear later.
Now you have a percussion instrument that is very important also for Afro-Peruvian music. Would you show us that and tell us about it?
Yes, definitely. So I have here the cajita, um, which is one of the instruments that we use in the Afro-Peruvian percussion section. So the Afro-Peruvian percussion section has three instruments: quijada de burro, cajon, and this is the cajita. So as you can see, I'll show you guys. See how it is? It's a box. It's hollow, and you know, just by looking at it, you can tell that you can actually put something in there. It's not. It didn't used to be a stick. It was actually used in the Catholic Church to collect the offerings. Right. So
The tithing, the money.
exactly, the support, right? So the Afro-Peruvians, they were not able to play skins because we had the virreinato happening, so there was a lot of restriction on Afro-Peruvian using drums with skin. So they just had to come up with any other thing, the resources that would be around. And so the cajita came into play. You added a stick, and it sounds like this.
And it must be said that one of the great contributions of Afro-Peruvian music, not just to the different styles of Afro-Peruvian music and dance, but to music around the world, is the Cajon Peruano, right? The Peruvian cajon, which I happen to have a modest copy of it here. It's the cajon.
Bravo.
And this is, by the way, the traditional Cajon Peruano, which some people may or may not know. There's a big difference between this cajon, which doesn't have a string inside, and the flamenco, cajon flamenco, which has a string attached to the back of the wood. But the story goes that this particular instrument, at a party with Paco de Lucia and Chabuca Granda, this instrument was played by one of the great percussionists of the cajon, and Paco de Lucia was just like, oh, wow.
Right,
I just found an instrument that could go with this music. And he took the cajon, or somebody gave him a cajon, and he took it to Spain, and next thing you know, Paco de Lucia was recording flamenco with the cajon.
Well, yes, I mean, thanks to Paco de Lucia, the cajon has come to the forefront in other genres, especially with the flamenco, but you can find it in every style of music now. That the cajon was given to him by Gaitro Soto de la Colina, which was the cajon player for Chabuca Granda, and they did it at the embassy, which was a reception for Paco de Lucia because he was visiting. And yes, I mean, when he heard the sonority of it, he knew right away that it just, the cajon and the guitar, it's like it just marries itself, madera.
And there's another example of how African music, in this case Afro-Peruvian music, influenced music from very far away, which already had an influence of African sounds and rhythms, which is flamenco. So this is something that's been going on for generations, for centuries. Before we move on to Eduardo, I want you to play one more style of Afro-Peruvian music, something a lot more, shall we say, slower and deeper, if you will, the landó.
Sure, landó, it's a really good, beautiful rhythm. Dice así, landó.
Beautiful. That's Angelo Salazar playing the Afro-Peruvian guitar. Thank you, Angelo. Eduardo, before I want you to talk about the music and the African influence, if you could play a couple of different styles of music from the Caribbean coast of Colombia and just briefly tell us about it. Quisiera yo que hablaras un poco mientras nos das una demostración de la música del Caribe de Colombia y los dos ejemplos de música de influencia evidentemente africana.
Bueno, gracias primero, Betto, por invitarme a esta reunión en un momento tan histórico para el mundo y también para los Estados Unidos, y contento de estar aquí. Claro, vamos a, por ejemplo, comenzar haciendo un ritmo que considero yo que es importante en la cultura afro y más que todo en la parte de los palenques del departamento de Bolívar.
So this is an example of the type of music that's played in a palenque, which is a sort of community, an enclave in the state or the province of Bolívar, where this music comes from. Eduardo, it's been said that Colombia is the land of 1,000 rhythms, and the Caribbean coast of Colombia has given the world some of the most exciting music, including the most popular dance form in the continent, and it's not salsa, cumbia. Se ha dicho, ¿verdad?, que Colombia es el país de los 1000 ritmos y la costa caribe de Colombia le ha dado al mundo música tan emocionante como el baile más popular de todo el continente, que no es la salsa, es la cumbia, porque la cumbia se baila en todas partes y hay cumbias en cada país de nuestro continente, incluyendo aquí. Háblanos de esta cuna de la música. ¿Cómo es? ¿Dónde está el manantial? Where is the fountain, the spring of this music?
El manantial y el secreto, a mi modo de ver, es que en esa región se dio algo mágico, y lo mágico está en la llegada del africano y a mezclarse con las culturas nativas del Caribe, dio como resultado toda esa riqueza folclórica que todo el mundo conoce. Ahí es donde está la magia.
The fountain, the magic of this music, Eduardo says, is in the arrival of the African immigrants that were obviously as slaves that came into this region of the Caribbean coast of Colombia, and they met up with the indigenous cultures, and this new music was born as a result. And this particular type of music has a region that's very specific, the Montes de María, ¿verdad? Los Montes de María son importantes para esta música.
Sin duda, los Montes de María son el comienzo de toda la cimarrología, es decir, todos los cimarrones en la zona. Y de ahí, de San Basilio de Palenque para arriba, consigues una cantidad de pueblos como María la Baja, inclusive Mate, inclusive otros pueblos como Gamero, y después San Jacinto Bolívar, donde es muy conocido porque es el pueblo donde los gaiteros de San Jacinto, como el grupo original, interpretan la música de gaitas y tambores.
So Eduardo says that specifically the enclave, or the sort of center of and the beginning of all of this rich culture starts in San Basilio de Palenque, this community which I happened to have been privileged to visit there a couple of years ago. And this is in a region known as the Montes de Maria, or the Maria Mountains, in this particular region of Colombia. And from there on, there are many different small towns where all this music came about, including one of the most famous one, San Jacinto, which gave the name to the famous band that's worldwide renowned, Los Gaiteros de San Jacinto. Y ahora que ya mencionaste a los gaiteros, te voy a pedir que demuestres uno de los instrumentos pues importantísimos de esta música festiva, bailable. I want you to play one of the most emblematic instruments of this music, which is very festive and danceable, which is one of the styles, is of course cumbia.
Sí, es un instrumento, es una flauta amerindia, como me gusta decirle a mí, de los descendientes de los nativos caribes de la costa colombiana, y que todo el mundo lo conoce como gaita, pero por ejemplo los nativos de la Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, los Coy, le dicen cuisi. En la sabana de Bolívar también los nativos de la zona le dicen chuana, y es sacado de del centro de un cactus de 3 filos, y la cabeza es hecha de cera de abeja, carbón vegetal molido y una pluma de pato como embocadura.
So let me try to explain and translate what he just said. The instrument that he's holding is commonly known as a gaita, but he prefers to call it Amerindian flute, the sort of native instrument that was played and that's played by several different native groups in Colombia, and they all have different names to this instrument. It's made of a cactus, of the center of a cactus plant, and at the very top it's made with bee wax, and at the very top, the tip that you play it with, the mouthpiece is out of a feather, of a duck feather. Okay, I think I gave justice to that. Wow. Thank you, Eduardo. Muchísimas gracias. Esta es la flauta hembra, ¿verdad? La gaita hembra. This is there's male and the female. He's playing the female right now.
Tiene 5 orificios, por eso se diferencia, y es la que hace la melodía.
So this is the flute that is the one that carries the melody in the music. Now, he's going to do something that I think is just the most amazing thing, which is he's going to play the traditional maracas of this region, which are also an indigenous instrument, and he's going to play the male, right? La gaita macho. Male gaita.
Male gaita.
Wow. Eduardo, wow, thank you. That's so beautiful. Muchas gracias. Bien. Pues, Eduardo, regresaremos contigo en un ratito. Vamos ahora con César Castro. César, antes de preguntarte algo, quisiera yo que nos des un ejemplo de un son.
Bien, pues buenas noches, claro que sí. Good evening, everyone. I'll give you a little sample. I have something for you today. And I would like to start showing you this, where everything starts in fandango. We call it the heartbeat. This is the connection to everyone around this little piece of wood called tarima. Can fit 8 people. If you don't feel this, then we're not communicating. And I want you to know that tonight's presentation is dedicated to the Black people. We cannot talk about the past without considering the present. And the song I'm gonna play is called La Bamba, which means resilience.
Gracias, César.
Yes.
La Bamba, creo yo, no estaría exagerado decir, pero es el son más reconocido mundialmente, emblemático de esta música nuestra, que es el son jarocho. César, I'd like to ask you, you know, for many decades, we've known that Mexico has had a third root, la tercera raíz, the African root. But it's been really in the past couple of decades that really in Mexico, this has been acknowledged as an influence of African presence in, not just in Veracruz, because there are other musical styles where the African syncopation is present. How is the African root manifested in Son Jarocho? If you could give us some examples of how we can feel that Africanness in Son Jarocho.
Wow, that's a question that is hard to respond with highlighting specific aspects because it's mixed so much. And also our knowledge is being, it's being destroyed, erased so much, including the government. You mentioned that 20 years ago, we barely started talking about it and having more presence as Afro-Mexicans and Afro-Jarochos, specifically from Veracruz. And they barely are recognizing the Afro-descendant people. So by telling you this in the 21st century, imagine when we get the first moment of mixing of the cultures 4 centuries ago, that knowledge is very washed out, I would say. But who does the research, they find out that we have 6/8, for example, the rhythm, just like Angelo was talking about, that he was saying how we subdivide in 3 our tempo, our beat. We do the same. And syncopation, of course, we do a lot of syncopation. We have call response in a lot of our sones jarochos. And we also have another figure, music figure that is called sesquialtera, where we're counting in 3 and then all of a sudden at 2. That happens just by having conversations with Eduardo, which we teach in prisons, in state prisons here in California. So we found out those elements in common. So actually through Eduardo, through Afro-Colombian, Caribbean music, I've been finding out more with the music, not the theory. It's just the language, the pure language. When I do a dance, he hears something and he blends it, and then they have a name for the rhythm, but we don't. To us, it's just bamba, zapateado, toro sacamandú. The biggest difference that we can tell you is sones in the way we dance it. if it's in a single couple or multiple couples. And that's sadly, that's the most we can get. Then the way, the techniques that we play, I use a plectrum, a piece of horn. And just like in Peru, we don't have skins. We don't have drums with skins. So what we have the tarima that I showed you. Well, you can barely see the height of the tarima, but behind me, we have a tambourine, which is another African instrument, but mostly from the north, from the Arabs. And then you see the quijada, or I can tell in the other side down there, which is another instrument that came from Africa, and you can see it in other Afro-descendant cultures in the Americas. So we need to find pieces. I mean, a few years ago, I ran into a video of kids from Congo, from República del Congo, playing a song. And they were playing it with little guitar, looked like jarana, which is the strumming guitar that I have here and that and there. And they were singing something that was already close enough for me to cut my attention and be very intrigued about what was gonna happen later. And all of a sudden they start singing just a Son Jarocho. The pattern, it was already close to a Son Jarocho, but when they started singing, halalay, 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 I was like, oh my God, that's just what we do. And I felt such a strong connection with that song. I want to go to two places, Ivory Coast and República del Congo, to the Congo. And of course, I want to go to Peru and Colombia, specifically in Cartagena.
To the source, absolutely.
I hope I have enough life and we can travel.
That's right.
I can find a little more of my roots, because honestly, I feel sometimes that yes, we can have so much more information these days, but we're kind of locked into our regions, countries, and even before the pandemic.
There is no question that the donkey jaw, la quijada, it has a very strong African roots. In just the same in Peru, they use, right, the quijada. In Colombia, I think they use it as well, right, Eduardo? La usa la quijada.
He's muted.
San Andrés y Providencia se toca para tocar calipso y nosotros le decimos carraca,
la quijada.
La quijada,
so,
sí.
This is in the island, one of the islands that Colombia has in the Caribbean, right? And where calypso, interestingly, yes, right? Calypso is the music of that region, very different from the rest of the country. Yeah. And the quijada is played there.
Yes.
Great. So we have roughly about 15 minutes or so before we get to some comments and questions from the audience. I guess the first thing I want you to do is maybe give us an example together, playing one at a time, of some music, so people can get a feeling of the commonalities between all of these three very different music styles, but that in the end, the root of African music is very much present in all of them. Something magical happens when all of you three are playing, not at the same time, but one at a time. And I'm hearing the beat, I'm hearing the syncopation in all of your instruments. So I think we should start with maybe Angelo, and then Eduardo, and then Cesar, and then go back maybe a couple times. I'll let you sort of improvise for our audience.
Okay. Rica que nos alegra y nos da sazón. ¡Ajá!
Ay, no más, no más. Ay, no más, no más. Mañana voy al rodeo a aprender a manganear. Aprender a manganear. Ay, amor, amor. Porque me parece feo que todos sepan lazar. Que todos sepan lazar y yo nada más los veo. Ay, no más, no más, no más.
Salgan todos los negritos, salgan todos a la pampa. Salgan todos los negritos, salgan todos a la pampa. Uno sale con su pico y otro sale con su lampa. Uno sale con su pico y otro sale con su lámpara. A que no me quema, a que no me quema el alcatraz, a que no me quema, a que no me quema el alcatraz, a que no me quema, a que no me quema el alcatraz. No me lo puede quemar, no, no me lo puede quemar el alcatraz, el alcatraz, el alcatraz, el alcatraz.
Porque con el tiempo acaso más y más pueda quererte.
¡Wow! Increíble, increíble. Yo tengo que pedir un último favor antes de regresar a la conversación. Quisiera yo escuchar un poquito más de la gaita. No sé ustedes, César y Ángel.
Claro, sí, hermoso.
Es que la gaita, voy a decir algo, Eduardo, la gaita es un instrumento indígena, como decías, amerindio, pero la comunidad africana, afrocolombiana, la adoptó como suya también. Y varios de los grandes músicos que tocan gaitas son afrocolombianos, ¿verdad? Como Paito. A ver, vamos a...
¿Me escuchas ahí?
Ya, está bien.
Paito nativo de las islas del Rosario, islote, en la parte insular, donde en realidad es Cartagena, ¿no? Cartagena es toda la parte insular, los islotes, y el centro de la ciudad es la vieja Cartagena. Y perfecto lo que dijiste. Los afros tocan el instrumento. De hecho, mi maestro, Paulino Salgado Batata, original de San Basilio de Palenque, siempre que estábamos compartiendo me decía, los primeros que tocaron gaita fueron nosotros los afros. Y yo me reía. Y siempre había con nosotros como una especie de debate con eso. Pero eso era porque lo que tú dices, ellos también se apropiaron del instrumento.
So Eduardo just said that I mentioned Paito, one of the great gaita musicians from Colombia, from that around the region of Cartagena, where Eduardo's from. But he says his master, Maestro Salgado Batata, as he was known, he used to say to him, he says, "Oh, you know, we were the first ones that played the gaita," and Eduardo would smile, but the reality is that the indigenous people played those instruments before, and then the Afro-Colombians took them as their own instruments and adopted them and played them. And some of the great masters of the gaitas are Afro-Colombian musicians. So with that, I want you to give us one more example of what would be a cumbia played on the gaita. ¿Cómo se tocaría una cumbia en la gaita, Eduardo?
Claro, ¿cómo no?
¿Qué?
Baile con gana. La cumbia zampuesana. Pa' que baile con gana. ¡Ay!
Maravilloso, Eduardo. De veras que gracias por ese sonido. A mí lo que me emociona mucho es de que estoy escuchando este casamiento entre lo indígena y lo africano. Escucho esa música en el instrumento y eso es lo que me emociona mucho a mí.
Sí, es algo donde de pronto en todo el Caribe, en todas las Antillas, lo que más amo yo, tengo que reconocerlo, es todo el folclore del Caribe, todo lo que suena, toda esa cultura insular. Y por eso me gustó lo que hablaste al comienzo. Todo lo que inclusive está sonando en el momento tiene que ver con lo que vino de África. Inclusive todo lo que baila mi hija, el reggaetón, todo eso, reggae, todas esas mezclas con todo eso que tiene que ver con el rap, todo eso viene de África. Y es lo único que en realidad la cumbia se encuentra como muy plasmado. África en el tambor, la gaita, la melodía de la gaita en lo indígena. Entonces esa fusión fue algo mágico, como hablábamos ahí en el Caribe colombiano.
Eduardo says that all of this music that I mentioned at the beginning, he says, has to do with the African presence in the Americas and the Caribbean. It just would not be possible, or it would be unthinkable to imagine the Caribbean without the African music that came from the continent of Africa. And all this music, he says, including the music that his daughter listens to, reggaeton, is all about African music. And so this marriage, he says, of the African rhythms and the gaita are this confluence that creates the sound that gave us what we know today as cumbia. Gracias, Eduardo. Vamos a regresar ahora con César, porque César tiene un crisol de instrumentos que quiero que tenemos unos minutos para que hables un poco de cada uno de ellos. I want you to talk a little bit about those instruments that you have, because you have quite a few instruments from the Son Jarocho tradition, and I think it would be unfair for me not to let you talk a little bit about each one of them.
Yes, thank you. As you mentioned in the beginning, when you were introducing me, I make instruments. but I didn't make all these instruments because I love the instruments that my friends do, they make. So I have two that I did, and the ones I've been playing are jarana, the one I'm having in my hands. So next to tarima, now you remember this box, is a small guitar, comes in different sizes. This one is another jarana. You can see how the size changes. So we have about 5 that you can categorize, but then from there, variations. So you can never go by measurements. It's 5 chords guitar. 2 of those are single strings, and the one in the middle, double. You can octave, you can do other tunings, but this is one of the most common these days. Traditionally, you strum. A lot of rhythm. It's not just one rhythm. It's not a way to acompañar. Accompany. How do you say that?
Accompany.
Just
accompany.
Sorry?
Accompany.
Accompany, yes. To accompany any other instruments. It's an instrument that could be a soloist, or it can just have a dialogue more than an accompany. And our strumming doesn't have a pattern. You follow the rhythms. So if you hear something going like then that's probably something that you want to play with, either by doing the same rhythm, reinforcing, or by playing a different rhythm that makes it more rich.
Now, just a little note for those of you who may not be familiar with the jarana. This is an instrument that's pretty much remained the way it is for a couple of 100 years. I mean, this is essentially a Baroque instrument. It's sort of a guitarra barroca, of course, with its own nuances that Veracruz gave it because of its particular region. But it really is, in essence, a Baroque guitar, and all created in Veracruz. And now you have a requinto, which sometimes it's 4 strings, sometimes it's 5.
Yes, and just to add to what you just said, people call it the Africanized Baroque guitar.
Yes. Requinto, properly known as guitarra de son, or son guitar. So that's number 2. The next one is the Leona, right?
Yes, I was about to say that you can find it in different sizes, and this is one of the biggest ones, and become a bass. This is pretty much, but we don't play it as bass. It has more a connection with the tarima, we call like.
It's more percussive than it is a bass instrument.
All made out of one piece of wood, the whole body. So you have to carve out a lot of wood in this one, a lot of hours, and the whole neck, the whole head is one piece. You just glue some braces underneath the top and everything you can see, including the tuning peg. So this is a very important part of luthiers in Veracruz, is that these instruments, unlike a guitar, which is sort of a sound box, if you will, that has various parts, this instrument, the guitarra de son, the Leona, which he just played, the bass instrument, and the jarana, they're all carved out of one solid piece of wood. Very important because it projects a lot of sound when they play it. They don't need amplification. When they play at the fandango, the instrument itself projects so much sound. So now going with the percussions, This is the donkey jaw quijada. We just call it quijada. Some people start calling it carraca because they found out about that name. But I hope I get far enough from the microphone, so it's with the stick.
Now, there's a question from somebody here that's wondering, where in Africa is the quijada played? And I've seen it played in different parts of Africa, and mostly in Western Africa is where I've seen it. I can't really tell you what country because, you know, in many ways, these were not countries until the 19th century, earlier 20th century, when they were sort of divided up by Europe. But I would say mostly Central and Western Africa is where the quijada is played. That was a question from somebody, una pregunta de Pablo Márquez, ¿en qué parte de África se toca la quijada? Pues en el parte occidental de África. Y ahora tenemos un pandero que ahí sí es una presencia fuerte del mundo árabe, específicamente, ¿no? Porque el instrumento se toca, bueno, todo el mundo lo conoce. Everyone knows the pandero as a Spanish instrument, but it really comes from the Arab world. Mm-hmm.
So, and the jarocho technique is very basic, even though some people are already getting sophisticated, learning some Arabic techniques, also Brazilian techniques. They're developing their playing. So right now I'm gonna show how it's played in Veracruz. How we have.
Great.
So
and the last thing I would say about César, in addition to, as you noticed, his mastery of all of these instruments that he just played, percussion and otherwise, string instruments, he also is a fantastic songwriter. He writes some wonderful lyrics, and part of the décima tradition, which of course was inherited from the Spanish, the siglo de oro, the golden age of letters, and the décima espinela, which was inherited by countless countries throughout Latin America, from Spain, Uruguay, Paraguay. The tradition of the décimas is all over the continent. Peru, of course, Colombia. Every country has the tradition of the décimas, the verses written in a particular style and form. And now we have to ask Angelo to give us more examples of Afro-Peruvian music. Angelo, it's your turn to kind of bring us home. Vamos a cerrar contigo un poco esta parte y luego vamos a entrar a las preguntas y respuestas del público que nos está viendo.
Ok. Bueno, ya habíamos cubierto ya el zapateo por mayor. Hicimos también al comienzo un landó y un festejo, ¿no? Ahora, hay otros ritmos que ya se han perdido con el tiempo. Y hay muchos ritmos todavía que se hacen ahora. Uno de ellos es la zamacueca, que la zamacueca es un ritmo muy antiguo de los afrodescendientes que llegó a predominar toda la región peruana y fue llevada a otros lugares de Sudamérica, en la cual va convirtiéndose de zamacueca a lo que se llama cueca. Y hablo de esto porque en el Perú hay un baile que es el baile nacional, que se llama la marinera. Y la marinera es prácticamente la hija de la zamacueca. Es la zamacueca, pero ya en otra versión, por decir, ¿no?
One of the styles that is very important to Afro-Peruvian music is called zamacueca. And as Angelo just said here, This is a music style that also traveled throughout South America, and it became in Chile, as people know it, as cueca. And I must add that in Argentina, it became samba with a Z, not with an S, as in Brazil, but the samba with a Z is one of the folk styles of Argentinian music, which came from Peru. Angelo, adelante.
Okay, here it goes. Samba cueca. ¡Uja! Eso es. Ajá. ¿Cómo? Ven a mi encuentro si te atreves. Eso es. Amo ahí. Sama cueca. Sama, sama cueca. Sama, sama, sama cueca. Ajá. Mi sama cueca, baila sama cueca, goza mi sama cueca, sama cueca, sama cueca, sama cueca, hey, 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 hey.
Eso. Gracias, Ángelo. Vamos ahora a abrir un poco la conversación a diferentes preguntas que nos están llegando de nuestro auditorio. Preguntan sobre, ¿me podrían explicar la diferencia de la flauta hembra y macho de Colombia? ¿Cuál es la diferencia? Nos preguntan uno o una de las personas que nos ven.
Sí, claro, por supuesto. La gaita hembra es la primera que yo estaba tocando, donde utilizo las dos manos para hacer la melodía. Tiene 5 orificios. 1, 2, 3.
There's 5 holes in the instrument and he uses both hands to play the instrument.
Y la macho tiene solamente 2 orificios y se acompaña en la mano derecha con la maraca, como me vieron, y solo hace acompañamiento melódico y rítmico con la maraca. Esa es la diferencia fundamental.
And the macho gaita has 2 holes, and it's also not only played with the mouthpiece, but also has to be played along with the maraca, which carries the beat, the rhythm of that particular tune. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference between those two. Let's see. Let's see. One more question here from, well, La Quijada. There was a question about La Quijada. We have that already. Incidentally, if you're listening or watching now, or you want to be part of this conversation, you can definitely ask us a question. We do have time for that. We have about less than 5 minutes for a couple of, I already kind of addressed some of those questions that people asked, but if there's any more questions, please feel free to send us that right now. We have room for 1 or maybe 2 questions because I want them to play one more piece before we leave, which is roughly in about 5 minutes. But in the meantime, as we maybe wait for another question, maybe you guys want to get ready to play one more tune for us. Okay, so last question, and we're gonna let folks send us that in the meantime. There was some question about the name of the group, but this is not really a group per se, but this is really a group that came together as a result of this particular panel. Although I do understand that you guys have played together, right?
Eduardo.
César and Eduardo, right?
Sí, en Golpe Afrocaribe tuvimos este proyecto que bueno, es muy interesante porque combinamos estas dos culturas.
I have to ask you, first of all, how can people look for your music online? Let's start with Angelo. If people want to learn more about your music and your work, Angelo,
First of all, I want to just, before we all leave, I want to just say thank you so much, Beto. Thank you, Plaza de la Cultura, for creating the space for us to share what we love, what our passion is. And just want to make sure that I show my gratitude to you guys and say thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. As far as locating me, it's very easy. You can find me under my name, Angelo Salazar. I'm on Facebook, also on Instagram. But I am working right now with Afro-Peruvian band called Chacombo. So you can find Chacombo. We're also on all social media, and you can follow, check out our music, do some of the performance and videos that we've done, and just keep up with what we're doing. Since we're talking about music that has been influenced through the Afro in Latin America, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned Chacombo, because that's the main objective of Chacombo, to be able to bring and provide diversity and awareness of Afro influence within the Latino culture, and hopefully that can embrace everyone else to get together with other cultures. You can definitely follow us on YouTube as well. And to add to this, I just wanted to mention, because I didn't mention it earlier, this month of June, it's actually the month that we celebrate in Peru the Afro-Peruvian culture. So we started the whole month of June. Yesterday was the central day, and it's going to continue. So for those of you that are listening and want to be able to be engaged into these activities that are happening not only in the United States but in Peru, you can follow me under Angelo Salazar or Chacombo, and I'll be sharing more of this information.
Great.
With all you guys.
Okay, Cesar, briefly tell us how people can find you, and then we'll ask Eduardo.
Yeah, thank you. Well, social media is the easiest way. César Castro Jarochelo. Jarochelo, you can't spell it, just go by Jarocho with J, and you'll see, you'll recognize my instrument, something there is like, okay, that one should be.
Great, super. And Eduardo, you also, ¿cómo se puede comunicar, contactar la gente o seguir tu trabajo?
Eduardo Paro Cuero, Instagram, y Eduardo Martínez, su Palo Cuero en Facebook.
Perfecto.
Ahí me consiguen. Y de una vez quiero darte mil gracias, porque este es un momento importante, no solo para los Estados Unidos, sino para la humanidad, con todas las dificultades, pero sobre todo porque África está todavía presente todos los días cuando amanezco. Me siento orgulloso de la sangre que llevo por mis venas, la sangre africana y nativo americana, amerindia. Y quiero que en este momento todos aquellos que están viviendo un momento difícil levanten su frente y vamos a sacar adelante todo este proyecto de vida.
Muy bien. He says that this is a very important moment for all of us, and every day that he wakes up, he can feel his African ancestry as well as his indigenous ancestry. And it's a very important time for us to be together and to unite. And so thank you for this opportunity to get together. Muchas gracias. Vamos a cerrar con una pieza más, cortita, de unos 2 minutitos, porque sabemos que tenemos ya otros compromisos. Por favor, adelante, arránquense. A ver, César, arráncate con algo.
Mucha gente aún no entiende, mucha gente aún no entiende, mucha gente aún no entiende. Eso me aterra y eso me aterra. La importancia de la gente, la importancia de la gente, la importancia de la gente, la sangre negra, la sangre negra. vámonos en camión. Yo llevé la manta, manta y todo el cartelón. Y vámonos en el tren, vámonos caminando, que yo llevaré la manta, manta que estoy pintando.
Muy bien, eso es. Pero mira, yo te digo, importante es esa gente que nos trae en el presente alegría para mi vida. Ajá, eso es. Esa gente africana que nos trae cosas buenas, amor del bueno, señores, ahí, ahí.
Mírame ese pajarillo que canta en la madrugada. ¿Cuál es ese pajarillo que canta al amanecer? ¿Cuál es ese pajarillo que canta en la madrugada? ¿Cuál es ese pajarillo que canta al amanecer? Déjenlo que cante, déjenlo que alegre, déjenlo que tumbe el silencio en la montaña.
Muchas gracias, Eduardo Martínez de Cartagena, Colombia, César Castro de Veracruz, México, Angelo Salazar de Lima, Perú. Un agradecimiento especial a Lynn Aro Martínez Arvilla y nuestro productor, el señor Abelardo de la Peña. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation tonight. Special thanks to Lynn Aro Martínez and Abelardo Peña for their work. Thank you so much. I'm Betto Arcos. Abelardo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eduardo, Cesar, Angelo, and Betto for bringing this all together for us tonight. This is our 20th grand performance here in Casa con la Plaza. And what a grand performance it was. Muchas gracias a todos por atendiendo hoy día. We're running out of time here, but real quickly, I'd like to thank our sponsors, nuestros patrocinadores, Walmart y AARP California. También, if you want to find all of our archive sessions, go to lapca.org, our website. You can also find them on Facebook and on YouTube at La Plaza LA. All our archive content, all our programming, plus to know what's coming up next week and the week after. This is now a permanent part of La Plaza's programming. Of course, you know that we're very active at La Plaza when we are open. Unfortunately, right now we are closed, but maybe soon some good news. I'm not going to spill the beans.
Thank you.
Then you'll have the opportunity to view our wonderful exhibition, AfroLAtinindad, Mi Casa, My City, in which this is one of the programming that we had put together for people to enjoy. And now instead of going to La Plaza, we have it here online, and we will continue to bring programming on that exhibit, on our future exhibits, and plus our discussions, presentations, cooking demonstrations, and so on. You could find them all on La Plaza website, lapca.org. Finally, we also have a page called La Plaza Comunidad, in which we feature other programming that's going on, including the Afro-Latino Festival this weekend online. So if you go to our page, click on our La Plaza Comunidad, and you'll get more information about that online festival with music, with workshops, with talleres that you can enjoy, learn more about la cultura, nuestra cultura. Thank you so much, everybody, for your wonderful comments, for being here. Again, thank you to John Echeveste, our CEO, all of La Plaza staff. Otra vez, Eduardo, Cesar, Betto, Angelo, and I'm sure I forgot something here, but.
One more, yes. Tamara Martinez, the dancer.
Thank you.
Yes. And just one last thing, I'm going to leave with you. I talked a lot about AfroLAtinindad. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see if I can get this right. Press the right buttons. A ver dónde estamos. Aquí. Aquí. Come on, there you go. Y aquí.
All right.
¿Se escucha? Muchas gracias a todos otra vez.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches, bendiciones.
Y nos vemos pronto. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Buenas noches.